200 time multiplier on an 18-month project. What's the focus of a founder?
Solving a problem?
Solving a problem, yes. But solving a problem in a
Today, I'm thrilled to welcome a guest whose journey is nothing short of extraordinary. From humble beginnings as a village kid in Africa to become a Forbes-listed tech CEO and a royal advisor, Khalid has carved a remarkable path across the global stage with over 25 international awards in innovation, technology, and business. Khalid is a serial entrepreneur and a globally recognized thought leader, advising Fortune 500 companies, governments, and organizations like the World Economic Forum and G20. Khalid, welcome on board, man. How's it going?
I'm good. Habibi, how are you?
Fantastic. How do you like Dubai so far?
It's hot, but it's tolerable.
Hot but tolerable. That's a great way to put it. Khalid, I'm so excited to have you here. We're gonna dive through all of your businesses, but I'm extremely curious to know about your beginnings because you have a very interesting story, very inspiring one, which is you started in a very small fish town in Africa and you became a royal advisor and a globally recognized CEO and a thought leader. Can you tell me a little bit about the beginnings?
Of course. It started, by my dad getting assigned as his first job as a public servant, a school teacher, to a 2,000 people town in the south of Morocco. As you can imagine, there's no private schools. There's one middle school and one high school in the whole of the town. Everybody knows everybody, but that also means that you don't have access to opportunities. We didn't even have access to the internet until very late in my formative years. And so that forced me to, especially for someone that is neurodivergent, as we were discussing, as well as someone that struggles with curiosity, as in unsatisfied curiosity. So I had to figure out a lot of things that I wanted to do and that I enjoyed doing, learning a lot of things with the very limited resources that I had. My parents, between them, when starting out as public school teachers, weren't making $500 together. So I was never hungry, and I was never, I had always a roof over my head. But it meant that we didn't have the luxury of doing extra things and having extra things. And so what inspired me was actually my dad. My dad, public school teacher, he has his job. He doesn't need to do anything else other than his job. He can come in and rest during the nights and weekends, but he decided he wanted to learn how to fix computers in order to round up the ends of months. And so he started doing that, but who had computers in a 2,000 people town that didn't have internet? Mainly, government officials and military and whatever. And then, he does the rounds and fixes the computers for everybody. Well, now it's a limitation. So now I need to do something more. So started learning how to code. I remember I went with him to a flea market where they had old books of C# and C++ that we bought, that he bought so that he could learn how to code. He never asked me to do anything in the same way, but the books were around the house. The computer that he fixed up himself for our house use was there, and so I just pick up those books and try to work out those things myself. And I believe when I was 10, I started on my first software, which was an education platform for biology.
Age how much?
10.
Age 10 years old?
Yes.
I was eating dirt at 10 years old, bro. This is not fair. You're joking.
No, I'm not. So I started learning how to code around 8 years old, and by 10 I started making proper software solution, and that was a solution around biology. So for biology education, I was bored with the biology courses that we were getting, and I wanted it to be interactive and playful. And so that's what I made. I made a tool for myself and people like me that didn't enjoy the way that biology was taught, a more fun and playful and engaging way to do so.
How did you build it?
I built it with Visual Basic and PowerPoint, if you can believe that, for the movements. So the concept was the blood sugar level, and
Okay.
so how does the sugar get processed, and insulin? How does it go through the blood? And so this was the biology course that I was building on, and so this was you have an interface with Visual Basic where you click on buttons. This is this part of the course. And then for each of the activities that you needed to see something that would move, I would do a motion on PowerPoint, and that would be launched as you click on a button.
Bro, if you have screenshot of those, that'll be amazing. I will post them in the episode. Seriously,
I'll look it up. Yes,
that's really good. That's a 10.
At 10, yes.
Okay.
So I released it at 11 years old, and in 6 months, it was burned some 12,000 times as a CD.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So what I would do, like, I didn't sell it. I was just giving it to people in school, and I gave it to the teacher. He broke it down and said, are you trying to gun for my job? Then I gave it to the supervisor, who shared it with other schools in the region. And so it spread a little bit more, and then I got a recognition and an award for sharing this type of solution. And then I started to sell it to the academy, not to the students. And so, at 12 years old, I was making some money from small.
How did your dad take this news?
He was very proud, because he made his first software like 2 years before mine. And it was tarakib, so it was educational as well. He wanted to teach his students better how to learn tarakib and sarf and tahwil.
That's so interesting. But so usually parents want their kids to read more.
Yeah.
So what they do is they force them to read. They try to motivate them to read more. But your dad tried something different, which is he didn't put any pressure on you. He just led by example, and you had some inclination, and you learned by yourself. Or no, that's not how it went.
No, I mean, we had a large library that had all the classics you can get. My parents were more interested in the religious aspect, so they wanted to hold me to the religious standards that they wanted. The reading part wasn't as much of a pressure, because I was excelling at school. Okay. So it was like, so he knows what he's doing in school. There's no need for us to go there. I skipped a couple of grades in school, and so it was hard for them to justify coming and talking to me about school stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
But how do you understand being at 12 years old and started making money? How do you understand that?
It wasn't very real to me. Money until that point in time, the most money I would have held in my life was like 20 dirhams, and so it didn't really make sense. It was like, so I have this money that's right there. It's my parents who are holding it, obviously. But if I wanted to buy a piano, I can. That was the extent of what I'm gonna do with the money. Or if I wanted to do sadaqah or something, I have money with which to do it. But that was it.
We're gonna go back to our exciting podcast, but a quick word from our sponsor today. As a product manager, I'm always on the lookout for brands that align with my lifestyle, and Tonic Grind is one that truly stands out. Tonic Grind is more than just coffee. It's where art, lifestyle, and coffee intersect. They offer premium, sustainably sourced beans that elevate your daily coffee experience with the rich, flavorful brews. What I love most is their dedication to thoughtful sourcing and craftsmanship. Beyond exceptional coffee, Tonic Grind is committed to fostering a vibrant coffee culture in the UAE, supplying top-notch beans to local cafes and businesses. Follow Tonic Grind on Instagram. This is a brand you'll want to watch. Now let's go back to continue the podcast, and thank you, Tonic Grind, for sponsoring this episode. Okay, so 12-year-old, you had a company. You had a first taste of success.
Yes.
What's next?
I understood. Obviously, I was surprised at the scale that it took. And I just gave a CD to a dude, and then 6 months later, I'm getting yeah, the information that this was burned to all the biology classes in I think it was 150 schools or something. And so for me, it was like, wow. So if I do something like this again, it's gonna propagate like this again, and it's gonna help this many people. And so that's what I started doing. I was just like, okay, so I'm gonna do other technology things, other software solutions or other programs, and I did a couple. Obviously, they didn't do as well as the first one, mainly because I was started getting more interested in like games and stuff like that, and so it didn't get distributed in the same way the first one did. But what it got me is interest from people that needed management solutions for like their inventory, or that kind of small software projects or websites. At the time we were like using Dreamweaver and stuff like that. By the time I was 14, 15, I had a few clients for mini software projects that were mostly business oriented, so like business management, cash, inventory, that kind of stuff, as well as a few websites. And it's just actually the whole like group of K&W technologies just came from me starting to get bigger projects and not being able to handle them myself. So I started hiring people to work with me to finish them off, and it's just going bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it got to a point where, oh, okay, so I can spare a few people to work on my own projects again. So it started the startup studio underneath the services layer, and then multiple business units, then buying other companies to lodge in M&A section, and went from there. Yeah.
Oh God. So again, you tried several things. Not all of them succeeded.
Yep.
The thing that failed, weren't you very demotivated and you just don't want to build anything and go play soccer, for example? Why you kept on trying?
I had the chance of finding some people that got very passionate or appreciated the thing. 2, 3 people. Just like we're talking a game, right? So I had friends my age, and I would share with them whatever I made. And so we would play it together, we would have fun, and it would still feel like, oh, so this is like my thing didn't just stay in my trash bin. There are at least some people that are enjoying it. And so for me, it was always about trying to find within myself a way to make sure that I can perceive something as a success and not define the success by any outside metric. So a success for me from making something is that something serves someone else, even if it's just one person. And so if I get to that place with a product, a service, whatever the case may be, then I'm good. And so defining success for myself is what enabled me to get to where I am, actually, because it is very demotivating and it is very difficult when you have invested much of your effort and much of your energy, money, and relationships into something, and that doesn't make it to the societal success standard, if we can call it that. And so when I started getting rejections from clients, rejections from opportunities, all of these things, I started understanding that this is actually one of the biggest blockages and the biggest problems that any self-starting person, whether it be an entrepreneur, would face. Yes. And that I absolutely needed to learn how to manage that. I knew that if I learned how to manage that I would be fine for the rest of my life, that whatever happens, I would probably do okay. I would probably fall and get back up without much issue.
So the next success that you had is, I think, a company called SkillLearn.
Yes.
And you attracted like 5,000 people in a relatively short period of time. Can you talk me the early stages? How did the whole idea came about, and what is SkillLearn?
SkillLearn was a blended learning platform. At the time, the term wasn't particularly, it wasn't called blended learning. I was just thinking, there are people that are experts at stuff, especially in our region, in our country, and there is no place where they can teach other people that would be interested. I was looking up actually courses to learn how to make sushi. We didn't have sushi in Morocco at the time, and I was traveling, and I found this. I was like, "What is this peculiar invention?"
That's so random. I love it.
And so, and I was like, "Oh, so I can look up, if there's like culinary schools." Well, that's not something that you can find in Morocco. Culinary schools just don't exist as a concept there. And so I was like, "Okay, so there must be other things that people would like to learn, and there isn't any structured method and place and platform of that learning." And so it just came from there. Mind you, I was still in school at the time. I was still the second year of university. And so, I just went from that prospect. I integrated it as part of one of our internal projects for interns. So, so usually if we onboard interns, we give them projects that aren't client facing. And so that was actually the birth of the startup studio. So SkillLearn was the first project that became a startup studio after. And so, started by interns, and then it grew up. Then we put some of our engineering team on it. And that's how it went forward. Then we built on it, machine learning recommendation algorithm to both match teachers and pupils, and to recommend different trainings to complement each other, especially because we're such a distributed platform. It's a peer-to-peer. It's not like we set up the pedagogical structure of the content. And so for it to become something that, that doesn't stop at one training, we needed to make sure that we can create a piece of software that would sort of create a pedagogical follow-through from the different other peer-to-peer content that is on the platform, as well as understanding that it needs to be geolocation friendly, because a person will not go to another city to just learn the continuation of whatever course it is, if the course is physical. And the reason why I said it was a blended learning platform is because we were one of the first platforms around to enable you to schedule both physical meeting or trainings, as well as online ones, synchronous and asynchronous, all into one course structure.
So you had a need to learn something. We didn't have any platform, so you created the platform.
Yes.
So from your personal needs, but then how did you validate that such thing will succeed in the market? Did you care about such thing? Come on. You didn't do any
a little bit.
Marketing research. You didn't do any user research.
Nope. I spent like 3 weekends building a prototype of the platform, and I put it online. I dared a teacher to that if I would get, I believe it was like if I would get 1,000 users before summer. This was in February or March. So before summer, if I can get 1,000 users, active users on the platforms, you would pay for my hosting and my... not that I needed the money. We're only like 15 people at the company. But it was like, I wanted an accountability partner as an only founder in the company. It's hard sometimes to come by that. Yeah. And so, and I was young. But
how old are you? You said a teacher?
Yes, well, I mean, the professor in at the university, I was 20 or 21.
21 when you had your success with SkillLearn.
Yes.
And you put it online, and did you market it? Which channel distribution?
Facebook groups.
Facebook groups.
Yes, I just would, again, I was still studying 8 hours a day. And so what I would do is at lunchtime, I would have like lunch in front of me, a sandwich or pizza, whatever I was eating. And then I have the laptop in front of me would have like 100 Facebook groups that are open in tablets, and I would post on each group.
No way.
I would create a piece of content that talks about one of the courses that we have. The first courses that I published were just me, my cousin, my friends.
So you were behind the camera.
Oh no, I wasn't recording anything. I was typing. It was just text content and the link to the platform.
Okay.
So text content about a particular course, and we weren't recording. All of these were live trainings. So if you were to book a training, I was teaching guitar, Photoshop, coding. So I had all of these courses listed on the platform, and I was the one teaching them. I still actually have some of the videos of my guitar course.
But in order to teach them, so in your 20s, you know how to play the guitar, you have to figure things out with Photoshop.
Yeah.
And what else?
Coding on different platforms. Yeah.
But how do you try to explain to your friends in the university that, okay, I'm posting those on Facebook groups? Did you share with your friends? Did you...
With people that were interested, I didn't share, like, it wasn't common knowledge at school until...
I will tell everyone. I will tell everyone twice.
I wasn't particularly connected with people. At the time, I didn't know I was neurodivergent, and it was like connecting with people was just difficult for me. So I think I connected mostly with other neurodivergents that didn't know it at the time either. So I was like, when I talk to you, do you understand what I'm saying? Do you understand the feelings that originate in this? And if you understand, well, we're friends now. And so, yeah, I had a limited number of people that I would share with because they were encouraging, because they were understanding of the fact that, I was doing this. They were doing their own projects. I had a friend who was a hacker, like a bounty hunter hacker. Also, and again, same university, same courses. He's working now for like the defense of some country.
Wow.
And he was also like very unique and very disconnected from the social norms.
Oh, really?
Which were like at 2 a.m, both of us are doing side quests in the in the same room. He's hunting something. I'm like, I made a homemade movie, like a 30-minute movie.
Oh, really?
It was about the ghosts of future past, the concept. Yeah, I made something similar. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. There's a quote from Steve Jobs that we can only make meaning of things when we look back. And looking back, all of those side quests that you went through, were they all productive in your current successes? 80% of them, 20% of them, or no, some of them were distractions?
In my case, what I learned to understand is accept that it's not the side quest if it makes me happy at the time it's happening. And so that was the criteria for it to be valuable for me. And then let's not forget that it doesn't, like, in my head, I didn't have one target or one objective or one goal that I needed to do with my life. I was always, and I am always, open to new things and different things. The only criteria that matters to me is the one I mentioned earlier, which is if this impacts positively even one person outside of myself, I'm good. And we're taking out of this the self-care part. So self-care part is if I do it and it helps me, then I'm good. But I'm talking about any projects that are outward facing in my case. And so, yeah, all of my side quests, and the G20 thing was a side quest. It's like I was building a company and then I get an invitation from a friend that works at the UN Security Council and says, we have a delegation that we're sending of experts to the G20 in Argentina, and I wanted to put your name. Obviously, it's the UN Security Council. They're going to do a whole bunch of due diligence. We don't know what's going to happen, but would you you be interested in? I was like, Argentina. I've never been there. That's an interesting thing to do. Okay, let's do that. And again, I was in the middle of building other things. World Economic Forum, same thing. It's again, all of these things, yes, when you put them all together and you put them in a narrative of look at this thought leadership guy that's doing all of these things. But for me, it was just like, I'm going to a new country, or I'm doing a different assignment. It's like working on policy recommendation. Oh, I've never done that before. Okay, I'm interested. I was innovation director in Abu Dhabi for Early Childhood Authority. Early childhood development. So nothing like I've never worked on that before. I didn't even hear about that before, like as it was something that had a agency or that had a ministry or anything. And I was like, when I got contacted by again another friend of mine, all of my friends know if you have something crazy or interesting, and doesn't have to look like anything that I would have done before. If you're good, I'm good. Let's do it. The day you asked me to go to an ice bath, I've never done an ice bath before. I was like, yes, let's go.
So wait, I really need to tell you guys the full story. So it was like the first time I ever met him here in Dubai. I was like, dude, I like you. We both have ADHD kind of, and he was super inspiring. I was like, I have an idea. Let's go ice bath 8 a.m. morning. And he looked at me and he was like, that sounds like a great idea. He was like, I invite like 5 people. He was the only one that actually said yes. And it was the best thing ever.
So, yes, that's how I approach life. And it also helped me understand, for neurodivergence, it's always difficult to understand what you can enjoy at any particular period in time, and it pushes us to depression, and it doesn't help in our emotional development. And so for me, all of those side quests were experiments in what I would enjoy and what part of each side quest I would enjoy as something to be repeated.
I'm going to definitely double click on this later throughout the conversation. I want to ask you if ADHD is it a superpower or hinder you, but I want to just finish one question regarding Skill Learn. You found channel of distribution was Facebook, but how did you iterate the product? How did you find what kind of courses work well of the product? Did you get any feedback? Did any user interviews?
Skill Learn was a particular case, and I'll explain why. So when I started out, most of the folks that signed up on the platform, and as I said, we got to about 5,000 active users in 3 months. It was most of the courses were either myself and friends or other professors and teachers for support courses on the university side or on the school side. So it was a way for teachers that had extra courses to be able to teach them or to access a new audience for them. In Facebook, the Facebook groups that I chose were Facebook groups for language courses, for education courses, for students in different schools. So these are the groups that I published in. And so that traction is what made me think, okay, so I have a validation for the market. I don't have a validation for the business model yet because it was freemium at the time. But whether we function on transaction or the teachers, after they hit a certain threshold of students, need to pay a subscription fee to stay on the platform, was fairly simple. They're making money off the platform. I'm giving them like 30 students already. Like before you have to pay, you can onboard up to 30 students in your courses. So you already got paid by your students. So paying a small fee to the platform shouldn't be an issue. And so that was, a pretty simple freemium premium based subscription model. And I thought, okay, so now that I validated this with an ugly ass looking prototype that I made in 2 weekends, we can have an engineering team build it. And so that took about 8-9 months for the engineering team to build it.
9 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
For the full-fledged feature with the mobile apps and and the web platform and everything else. And it was just two developers, one front end, one back end, and our designer was helping him out for the UI UX, and that was it.
And eventually, what happened to Skiller? Did they exit it?
Oh, so that was the peculiar part, is that before we were able to launch it, I was looking to fundraise for it. And so we put it to participate in like a competition that happened in Dubai, and that was actually the first time that I came to Dubai.
Oh, okay.
So it was as a part of a competition for SkillLearn, and I think we won second place regional, and the interest was the CEO of a royal foundation, from the region, was there and was interested in using it for their own beneficiaries, for the foundation's beneficiaries.
Oh, okay.
So we never launched the product, a fully featured product, publicly.
So interesting. Okay.
So they said, okay, we would like to have access to your platform. What's your model? I've never done SaaS at that point, mind you. I've only done I'm selling you a platform, I'm building it for you, right? And so I was like, we can tell you the platform. I was like, we're interested in that recommendation model. And they talked about IP again. I didn't get what IP was.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I was like, okay. Of course, I'm gonna have my team work on preparing a proposal and send it back to you. I sent a follow-up email that was just trying to buy time while I go take a crash course on fundraise, exits, IP sale.
How did you know? How were you able to know how much money you wanted to ask? Because that's a very interesting question.
It is, and I think we lowballed the offer.
Did you really?
Obviously, because again, I was a kid, and I would have I put the ask on the table for an amount of money that I had never seen up to that point, right?
Okay.
And so obviously I looked up what valuations were, and that's that was the follow up on the conversation of the IP. Okay, what valuation do you put on an IP? What valuation do you put on a product? Does it come with a maintenance contract? Does it not come with a maintenance contract? So this whole thing, and so it for me it was very interesting because from start to finish, SkillLearn wasn't even 18 months old when it was sold. So including everything. And again, from a prototype in my house to two developers, junior developers that were working on it for 8 months. And so it didn't cost me much. So having a 200 time multiplier on an 18-month project with a 5-year maintenance contract that was almost the same amount of money that was the original sale.
Oh, wow.
Was pretty much good enough for me to part ways.
It's a big success.
And so I was like, yeah. And the reason why I said we lowballed it is because they accepted the offer right away.
The negotiation.
They didn't negotiate. And so I was like, oh, okay. So it wasn't that much money for them.
But how did you know how to negotiate maintenance contract? How did you know because you're a product person.
Yes.
And did you hire a lawyer? Did you have a mentor, a CEO that you could ask those kind of questions?
Dude, I was 21. Where do I get a mentor?
How did you figure things out, man? How do you
Google. Google. And if and thinking on your feet.
Really?
It was like, I would register the keywords that the person, that CEO of the foundation would mention,
Nice.
and then look up what the heck is this?
Oh God, that's so amazing.
And so for the maintenance contracts, because we used to build software solutions, we used to build websites, even before. So I knew about the maintenance contracts, but when I, brought up, okay, so we're gonna give you the software, who's gonna update it for you? Do you want to have, are you gonna have an internal team that's gonna monitor it? Do we have to train them on how they're gonna fix if there is something that goes wrong? I was like, they were like, oh, we were planning on having you on a maintenance contract. I was like, okay, so let me come back to you with a number for the maintenance contract. And then I went and I Googled what's the maintenance contract for a 3-year or a 5-year term, how much of a percentage of the IP sale should it be? And
Wow.
yeah.
I mean, that's just an inspiring story at 21. Again, I was eating dirt at 21. That's a big difference. Okay, so you create your own company to offer services. And then you created the kind of startup studio, and Skilllearn was your first success. How did you feel after making like 200x within 18 months selling a SaaS company? Did you feel very egotistical? I would stop talking to my parents, man. Bro, I would not even talk to my mom anymore, man. I love you, mom. Seriously.
And honestly, it was really just so crazy that I needed to figure out where I needed to put the money.
Great problem to have.
It's
Khalid, please tell me more about your problems.
It's okay, so it's gonna be a very hard, it was complicated to bring it back to Morocco because of the customs and the exchange office stuff. So I needed to I'm gonna have to have a company in the country where the sale is going to happen, and I looked at that country. It didn't have foreign ownership rights, so I had to look for a close country that would have.
You definitely hired the law firm.
No, I looked it up myself.
That's very risky, man. That's very risky.
It was. Again, 21. It was I'm saying it, I'm thinking on my feet, but for me, the issue of danger or risk doesn't really factor in. What the worst thing can happen is
you will lose some money. That's a big risk.
Not only that I'll lose some money, even if we went kaput, with the whole company went kaput, and the guys that work for me are gonna find somewhere else to work, and I'm gonna go back to school. I was still in university. I'm gonna finish university and go work somewhere else. For me, the concept of risk wasn't particularly clear cut. I was mainly just really, really trying to outrun the crazy that was happening.
So you sold a company with so much money you can imagine, and next day you went to school.
Yes.
Please tell me that you gloated and you told everyone. Please tell me you told everyone. Twice.
There is in this world, there is less than 20 people that know about my sale.
Oh, come on. Really?
Yeah.
I will tell the professor. I will teach, man. Bro, I don't know. That's so weird to me. Okay.
And for me, the school was a gift to my parents. I wasn't particularly interested in going to school. So it was really just giving them the diploma is still at their house. It was I got the diploma to give to them, and that was it. I was doing my business, I was doing other things during school, but I would come and I would try to pass the exam so that I would get that thing framed and put it home.
For my audience in different part of the world, we in developing countries, the graduate degrees that we get, it's not really for us. It's not really for works, for our parents. So my dad still have all my graduate degrees. I cannot take them away from me. It's his. He paid for it. But yeah, no, that's very inspiring. So this was your first success. Mm-hmm. It's all company Skilllearn. Your next big success was a company called SOS Santé.
Yes.
And it was a physical product.
Yes.
That was very different from what you did in the past. Usually when people succeed in whatever that is, they try to replicate it again and again and again. Why didn't you start another platform?
That's an interesting question. Let's call it my vehicle, was my services company. So for me, the thing that was my bread and butter and that sustained my livelihood and paid for my stuff, my family stuff, and the folks that were working for me is the services stuff. And so the startup studio was basically a side quest experiment for me. So whenever I had the crazy idea that I wanted to see happen, I would take 2 people or 3 from my team, and I would put them 25% out of their work time on it, right? So they're still paying their salaries with the work that they're doing for the other clients. And so what I'm losing is like a small point average on a profit and margin loss, and who cares when. Again, it satisfies my side quest yearning that I would have. So whenever I finish a project, whether we closed it, whether it got sold, whether it fundraised, whatever happened to it, then I need to find like my next thing so I don't get bored. Because again, I would rather go on a side quest that still keeps me within my environment than go. And by the way, once I like started veering off the side quests that were within the startup studio, that's when the G20 stuff and the Abu Dhabi stuff happened. It was like, oh, I don't want to build another product anymore. I want to go do something else. So I started doing some other stuff. Yeah.
But what is SOS Santé and how it started? It's a really touching story.
So my mom had a vehicle accident, and she had to wait for almost 2 hours for the emergency services to get there because they couldn't locate her. So it was a dark alleyway, and she basically veered off a dog and hit the pavement, and so there wasn't other people around. It wasn't like a very frequented street. And so, because she was concussed, she couldn't call for help, and she lost her phone in the hit. And so she had to wait for somebody else to just come driving by and notice that there was something wrong with the car, and then try to call the emergency services. And so that made me frustrated and think, why isn't there, like, cars with all the systems that they add in, why isn't this a thing? Why don't cars have a system that can alert when there is an accident that is strong enough, based on just basic sensorial information, to call emergency services or to notify the fire department or whatever is applicable in each country? And so I thought, you know what, let me do this, and I had this obsession that kind of fulfills my side quest, which is I need to make the first prototype of whatever the product or the side quest is. And so by that time, I was selecting my double major for university. So I thought, well, software, you can learn it online, but where do I get like the hardware learning stuff from? So I made the decision for the double major entirely just on the fact that I wanted to build this on my own. And so that's what I did. And then 3D printing started being a thing at the time, and so I 3D printed the case for the electronics to go, and then went and built the electronic cardboard. And for me, it was that was my thing. So building the first version of the product, and then the product gets a life of its own once I go talk to some of our existing clientele. At the time, we were already 5 or 6 years in the.
Before going in the product, when you're talking to a client, you're building this product. Did you share that with your professor? Did you find information? I mean, we had Google 10 years ago, but we didn't have the same kind of resources that we have now. How did you figure out? Because I'm software engineer as well. I build boards as well. It's very complicated.
It is, yeah. And at the time, I needed to first try to figure out what was needed in order to qualify an accident. What information could I use in order to qualify an accident? So I had to do some physics work to understand, okay, so what are the forces involved in an accident? How do I know if a car rolled on itself? How do I know if it was hit from the right, from the left? What force, what acceleration, what's a stop, what's a veering? All of these things that would qualify how bad an accident is, and also that would qualify what kind of injuries can happen in this particular type of accident, right?
Now those available on database in the interweb. Back then, how did you get all of those data?
I would, at the time, our smartphone had accelerometers and gyroscopes.
Okay.
And so I would put I made it a silicone casing and I put the phone inside of it and I put it on an RC car, the kid cars.
Oh.
And then, yeah.
Okay.
And then I started playing with it. I started building rails and seeing how it flips and what happens to it. And if it gets hit by another RC car, what happens. It was in a smaller scale. And then I put the phone in another case inside the car, and then I started driving with it, pulling hard stops and rolling off the shoulder ways and doing all these experiments to see if it's going to trigger the messaging or the call to the emergency services or not, based on a false information. And so all of this all that experimentation was part of building the first version of the product.
I love how resourceful you all. Oh, wait, so please dumb it down so my simple mind can understand it. So you wanted to know if acceleration or stopping the car will activate this SOS signal. So you had two phones on an RC car, and they had a gyroscope, and you will test and you will build kind of roads as well.
Yes. So the rails are to know, for example, when it flips, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, if it's just for whether it's a T-bone, whether it's a fender bender, all these kind of basic accident simulations, you can do them like regularly with an RC. But to seeing when a car goes off like a hard shoulder of a road, and I don't want it to be like for there to be too many false positives, because we wouldn't want to overload the emergency services. And so that was kind of, obviously a lot of those things perhaps didn't have to happen, but it was, again, a side quest for me. So I was trying to understand the mechanics of what makes an accident.
So a lot of entrepreneurs, especially here in Dubai, they go software companies, SaaS companies, because they're easy to scale, relatively low R&D, research and development. But usually, this company is usually categorized as a deep tech. Why we don't see a lot of deep tech anymore?
There is some deep tech that is happening as research projects in the universities.
Okay.
The problem is, and you mentioned it when we were discussing earlier offline. What's the focus of a founder? What's the definition of success?
Solving a problem?
Solving a problem, yes. But solving a problem in a profitable way. And so the problems we tend to go to when it's not particularly hard-hitting as a problem for us personally is easily solvable problems that have an easy way to profit. Deep tech doesn't apply to, these concepts don't apply to deep tech. So unless, one, you have so much money that you don't know what to do with it, and you have a neurodivergent brain that wants to solve a problem, the hell with the consequences, unless that combination is there, or you are so focused or hell-bent on solving a problem because it matters so much to you that, again, hell with the consequences, you wouldn't go into deep tech. And then you have researchers for which the financial consequence has been taken off the table because, well, they're being paid for being researchers, for doing what they're doing. But on the other hand, they don't have the knowledge and experience, and they don't have the incentive to take that on a commercial side.
So when you first started working on SOS Santé, how did you validate that this business will make sense? How did you validate that it will be profitable? How do you know how much you will need to sell, or how to market it even?
None of those things matter when you're just building the product. The only thing for me was, I want to make this work.
This is not what they teach us in business school.
Exactly.
Khalid, this is not what I've taught by business school. I need to have a strategy plan. I need to have a product description, a very detailed one. Oh, God.
And that's the thing, is that, what we call moonshots?
Yes.
Business-oriented people will never do moonshots. because it doesn't make sense from a business perspective. So that's why the only people that do moonshots are either the Jeff Bezos and Elon Musks of the world that have too much money and need to use it for something, or the people that are in the trenches that have some sort of obsession with solving that particular problem for a reason that has nothing to do with money, and that makes them be the one to lead, like to open the way and to carve the way for that particular problem to be solved.
So you're building this product. Did you wait until you have a good enough product and start approaching client and approaching investors? When did you try to start, I mean, testing it in the actual field where you have an actual car?
Honestly, as soon as we packaged the first 3D printed case,
Okay.
it wasn't particularly compact. I believe the thing was something like this,
Okay.
with a protruding thing that goes into the cigar lighter.
Yeah.
So it was the size of a flip phone, those small flip phones of the time. And so that was the most compact I could get it while making it, at home, before manufacturing it. And so I made a few pieces. I went to one of our former software clients that had a fleet of trucks, and it was a small fleet. I think he had like 9 or 10 small trucks, and I was like, can you just put these in your trucks? Nothing other than just leave them there.
You did not sell them.
No. What do you?
For free.
What are you gonna sell? It's
And-
like five pieces of product, and I needed the data. So I put like a SIM card with a 3G at the time for to communicate information to my server, and I was monitoring the driving and the messages, false positives and whatnot that would result from erratic behavior or like a pothole in the street. It was like they would hit a pothole and I would think that it was an accident, right? So that's how I tweaked the software part. And then I went and started looking for manufacturers in China, and then I found a few that manufacture something similar to what I was doing, so that I can offset the price of doing like the full manufacturing set from scratch. And it took a while. Like I got roped into doing this hardware thing, and because my definition is it needs to serve somebody before I can shut it down or sell it or whatever do with it, I needed to get to the point where I can make it serve somebody before I could do anything with it. And so it took that much work and dedication. I had to go to China to check out the factories, and then I ordered some stuff that got lost in shipping and hardware. It's definitely as hard as people say it is, and if you don't have a lot of financial backing, it's not easy to go through with.
So then you went and sold it to an actual client, or you started with raising money for it? What was the next step after you had manufactured a good looking product?
It was like I tried both. So I started trying to sell it to clients. The issue is we had a policy issue in Morocco for the distribution of it. So to call the emergency services, you can only connect with public emergency services for all accidents happening on public road. And so when I went to work with the public emergency services, they were not cooperative, and they did not want to work with me on implementing like the software interface that would interact with them and show them where accidents are, like on a map basis, with all the information around the degree of severity and etc. And as well as some basic information of who the driver is. And so I started selling it as a different use case, which is for insurance adjusters. So it's like it quantifies what an accident looks like, right? So if you get hit from the right, that's this guy's fault because you're at an intersection where you are the one that has the right to go, right? So this corroborates whatever the insurance adjuster needs as information, as well as notifies close contacts, so your family members, so that they could call the emergency service instead.
And how did you find those different use cases or those different features? Is it based on customer feedback, or is this something that you and your team thought about it? Or how did you iterate about it?
You just brainstorm with the team. You brainstorm with clients that are friendly and that want to contribute. But it's mainly just a common sense sitting down with the team and thinking about it.
Now you want and start raising money for it.
Yes. So when I started trying to sell, and it was becoming a hard thing to sell because of the policy for the particular use case that I had in mind, I couldn't drop the use case because that's what I built it for, right? Adding the notification of the close kin kind of helped me feel better about it, because yes, it still does help a person if they are not able to call themselves. It sends the GPS location by SMS to their close, family members or emergency contacts, and it tells them informations about the accident as well. So I had fulfilled somewhat that purpose. But I still wanted to see it in action, man. I still wanted to see the product calls to an ambulance, and it comes and it picks the person up, and yay, we did something with it. And so I really wanted to get that to work, even if it worked on a small scale, and get it done. And so what I started doing is I started checking out other countries. Regulations in other countries, particularly seeing for those countries whether it was privatized, the emergency service management was privatized, or who are the players in those sectors? Do they have a good relationship with insurance companies? And so in that particular scenario, South Africa was a good example. So South Africa had a fully privatized emergency services sector, and it was working in collaboration with insurance companies. And so, I just went to South Africa, met with some folks there. Again, trial basis. I shipped some units directly there, had them tested, and then started getting more interest from them. They wanted to white label the product for their own use. I learned a little bit from what I did from before, so I wanted to be part of the play. I didn't want to do it as a white label, and so they ended up investing from an M&A standpoint. So they made a joint venture, and that joint venture owns a percentage of the company. Yeah.
I'm interested about the challenges that you face during funding for this company. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I'm asking this is because I hear this from a lot of founders, especially who are building deep tech, because when they're trying to explain what is those deep tech companies in this region, investors doesn't fully understand it and doesn't want to invest in it. So here, investors like to invest in services, food delivery, taxis. And did you face any rejection? How did you explain these stories to investors?
It was mainly, if you notice something from Skill Learn or something, by the way, I didn't go to investors. I went to companies, foundations, organizations that are actually going to use that product for them or for their clients. And so it was more of a corporate venture thing than a standard institutional VC or otherwise. And so the way I look at products is I want to go meet somebody that has as much invested in this concept to work as I do, not just because it is financially rewarding for them, but also because it makes what they work better. So the emergency services, it's great to be able to have these pings on a map that say this is where to come pick people up, instead of having to have like a full set of call, managers and that need to ask people that are not in a situation or in a position to be asked where they are in country. Also, the collaboration with the insurance company became a lot easier because, well, you have a bunch of information around the accident, even in places where there aren't, witnesses for what happened during the accident. So you get some basic information so that even the judges can use it as a blameless, assignment for who made the error involved in the accident. So all of these things actually made it so people were interested in buying the product like they were gonna buy it for themselves, not as an investment. Oh, is it gonna return X, a 10x, 100x? No, it's just, oh, we're gonna use it tomorrow. We're gonna start selling it to our clients. And so the insurance companies started selling it to their premium clients, so adding it actually to their subscription model. So it's like, oh, you get an extra nice thing that will enable us to support your security and make sure of your safety. And people jumped on it because it was packaged with the insurance. So it was like, I don't know, 7% of what they paid a year in insurance. So it was a tiny bump, but it's a sale of a product for both myself and the insurance company. And so, the way I thought about it was always like this. And I fundraised for SOS Santé just because I could. But I fundraised from governments and institutionals. That was actually non-dilutive capital. And so I got non-dilutive capital. I still maintained 100% of the ownership and proceeds, and yeah.
And what did you do eventually with SS Sunday? Did you sell it? Did you sold it?
Sold it to that joint venture. Still have a small percentage in it just because it's my baby, and I in Skill Learn, I didn't have the forethought of doing that just because it wasn't going to serve the public. It was like an internal tool, and I was like, you know what, that's fine. But for SOS Santé, it was much more personal, and so I wanted to keep a part of my baby.
My question: why SOS Santé was very personal for you, and it was important for you for this product to succeed, even though you know that deep tech is hard, and you probably know that you're not gonna make a ton amount of money, but it was very important for you to build it.
Because it was a life or death situation, and contributing to that or helping in that. Yes, gaining knowledge, which again I'm talking about Skill Learn. Gaining knowledge is very important, and it is a cause that we should all strive to support. But it doesn't have the same weight to as life and death situations are, like accidents are. And so for me, because it was so personal with my mom's story and everything, but also because it was such a life or death important product to be there. Maybe 2 years down the line, started seeing that this solution or this type of product started happening around the world. You know what my reaction was?
What was it?
I was happy.
No way, competition.
That's the thing, because for me it wasn't competition. It was like, there's this thing that isn't being supported right now. People are being left in a ditch because there is no way for people to know where they are. And so when that started, I was like, wow, great. I'm happy that this is getting now the interest and the attention that it needs. Because again, this is not a money thing for me. And it never is. Even today, as we were discussing earlier, retiring 18 months ago, it wasn't I could grow the company more. I could make more money. I could list it on the public exchange. It was never that thing for me. It was mainly just, I got to a place where I am comfortable. The company pretty much runs itself, and it's self-sustainable, and I just wanted to go discover what I can do that will entirely satisfy both my curiosities and the lifestyle that I want for myself. Because running a company was never it. I honestly, I was.
You don't want to be entrepreneur, founder.
No, running a company was just the only way I could do what I wanted to do, where I come from. We don't have $500,000 salaries. We're not Silicon Valley. So if you wanted to be able to pay for building a hardware product, where do I get the money from? You said it yourself. Who's the VC that's going to come pay for deep tech? I was getting my profit margins from the service part, and I was investing part of it in building the product.
That's very risky.
It is, but again, that wasn't the point for me. I wanted to be able to, one, provide for myself and my family in a comfortable way, and in a way that I don't have to worry about the necessities of money later, because I hate the concept of money. Is so pissing off for me.
It's not the root of all evil. My dad was wrong. But let me talk to me about the accolades. Which company put you on Forbes 30 under 30? And what does that meant to you at the time?
It was a group. It was K&W Technology.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was really nice just because...
And let me correct myself. You were the first 30 under 30 in Morocco, Al Maghrib.
Yeah, in the Maghreb region. So Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia.
You were the first...
Yeah.
Rewind. You were the first 30 under 30 in the Maghreb region.
Yes.
That's a freaking big title.
Yeah.
What did that mean to you at the time?
It was nice. It was...
Khaled, it's nice is the understatement of the freaking century.
It was nice just because it was, the group flew under the radar for, at that time, a decade. So SOS Santé and Skill Learn got some acknowledgement just because they were startups. So we were, promoting them and pushing them into competitions so that they would gain attraction, and we would get some user feedback, perhaps get some investors, perhaps get the same type of deal as we got with Skill Learn in the first competition. So they have like a list of accolades, but the Forbes 30 under 30, and then the United Nations most influential people of African descent. The Forbes one was...
Bro, that's another big title. Don't just mention it like it's a small thing, bro. That's a huge as well.
But it's for me, it's the K&W Technology, or the reason why Forbes was interesting to me is because it acknowledged the work of a decade that went under the radar because I chose so, because it wasn't really interesting for me to promote it. And so when I got approached by the editorial team, it was, they, as you've noticed when you did the research, there's very little content about me, about the group online. And so the fact that they noticed that there is something there. Yeah. Even the website for the group is basically non-existent. It's like a landing page that doesn't say anything. And it was because I always believed that I wanted to work in silent, because it was mainly to satisfy my own curiosities. And so I always felt that was more comfortable. And so it was really like a nice thing. It was, somebody went and dug in and found out that I was doing this stuff for a while, and decided that it was worth mentioning. So it wasn't particularly whether it was Forbes or something else, or whether it was the first in the region. That was like a marketing thing that my speaking agent came up with. I didn't write that. Anyway,
how did your Moroccan parents reacted? I don't care about your reaction anymore. How about your Moroccan parents reacted to this?
They didn't know what Forbes was, so it didn't really change anything. I was like, you gotta know
really?
this. Like, did you get some money with that?
That's a typical answer. That's a
Exactly. So it was like, it's the same thing that happens whenever I'm invited to speak at an event, or it's like, are you getting some money with that? And so yeah, and it kind of coincided. So the Forbes announcement was in August of 2019, and the royal appointment was in October. And so it was like they kind of came right around each other, and it made me feel kind of, viewed, just because most people didn't know about me or what I used to do, and it was by choice. But it's still combined with imposter syndrome. It makes you feel like, oh, I haven't done really much with my life. The success that people see on on the magazines and on TV. Yes, I was doing something, but other people are doing a lot better, and I'm just in my back corner, right? And so the fact that the nomination from His Majesty came out of the blue, have zero information. I just got a call one day from the royal court, saying, "Oh, there will be a car tomorrow at 4 p.m. waiting to take you to the royal palace for inauguration."
So it's not an application that you can apply to.
God, no.
Oh, really?
Serious?
I don't know.
No, man. It was like a state affair. It's just,
wow.
yeah. You get a call and you get nominated, and you don't. I still today don't even know how they came to choose me.
Someone mentioned your name.
And again, even that someone mentioned your name. Who's the someone? I had zero contact with government, with anything in Morocco. It's like, even when I was on the G20 stage, Morocco's was put on the G20 map for the first time in, I think it was 60 years or something, since the establishment of the G20, and the zero knowledge from the Moroccan government or anybody. I went through the airport the same way I came back. I actually came the week after, and I took the policy recommendations that I worked on writing for the G20, and that passed, and I put it on his desk, Minister of Industry at the time, and I was like, "Oh, if there's any policies there that you would be interested in implementing, I'm happy to support," and I left it there. No answer came out of that. Just so you understand that in my head, I was like, Morocco doesn't know that I exist. And so it's not like I care, but it is a nice helper with the imposter syndrome when you think, oh, I didn't need to put myself out there for somebody to notice that I was doing some,
Do you mind just quick, what's this G20 for our listeners?
G20 is the 20 largest governments by GDP in the world, and they do every year gather to work on shared policy recommendations to implement within these top 20 economies of the world.
So this is how important that is. And how do you understand someone who grew up in a small fish town, 2,000 people, writing policy for the G20? I'm still waiting when your ego is going to inflate. Come on, if this does not inflate your ego, I don't know what will.
You need to understand something. When you when you take it as it comes, the way I took it when the friend that I mentioned told me that he'd nominated me. For me, it was a quest. It wasn't. I would never connect the work that I do with the perceived impact that it has, and that again also comes through with imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome makes you not acknowledge what you do and its impact on the world, and minimizes that by putting you back into for example, the amount of effort, or by putting you into comparison with the top people of the world and telling you, oh, you haven't done anything compared to those. And so that combination makes it very hard for anybody to, as you said, for it to get to your head. That's one. Two, I'm a person of belief, and so I believe that God put me on this earth for a purpose, and that purpose is to serve. And so wherever I am put on a platform, the way I view it is, God put me on this platform to, one, represent who I am and the people that are like me, represent their interests, and be a vocal proponent for their rights and their representation. And the second is for the next year, for somebody else that looks like me to be there. And so on the year that, 2019, I was the first Forbes 30 under 30 in the Maghreb region. In 2020, there were 3 more. All of them were mentored by myself.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay, you should be more proud of this than getting the accolade yourself.
It is. And again, it's not something that I share. But I had, several people contact me and ask me if, how, because that's why I shared it. Otherwise, I wouldn't even share that the accolade happened. The same way I didn't share what I was doing with my business. And so I shared the accolade because I wanted for people that are interested in the accolade to reach out to me. Until today, I still get people saying, Forbes 30 under 30, can you tell me how you got it? And so, yeah, that's for me the weight and the responsibility of representation, of being first somewhere. And so that's the only way I see all these different things that I've done until today.
Just one thing that just occurred to me, especially in Dubai, that a lot of people ask me how to network and how to reach out to certain investors or certain founders. And I think the story, your story, the way you're describing it so far, which is you have to be someone who's creating the product that people want to reach out to. So His Royal Highness reach out to you. There's a lot of things happen to you after 10 years of working and putting your head down. It just doesn't come in one night or like 1 year.
Everybody would have heard that at some point or another. Yeah, overnight success is, 10-year endeavor. It's not. There is no overnight success other than, TikTok. But for me, what I advise everybody listening to us is you need to find what motivates you as a person. And it doesn't have to be the same from today to tomorrow, by the way. That's one big misconception that I don't believe in. You just need to find what can fuel you to sustain you throughout the different challenges. Building a product or a service or a business, it doesn't have to be a representation of who you are or your worth. It is just your vehicle to be able to bring your purpose and impact to the world. And so in my 15 years of doing what I do, I had made a lot of choices that from the outside, people would think this is crazy. Why are you doing this? Can you give me some justification? I want to explore something new. I want to do something that excites my curiosity. I want to learn something new. Doesn't have to make financial sense today, as long as I can pay my rent. And by the way, I got married young. I got married by the time Skill Learn was getting sold. So I took 21. So I had the responsibility of being a married guy that doesn't have a stable job, that's still in school, that's doing all of these things. I still had to pay my rent in one of the most expensive cities in North Africa, and have the salaries of the people that work for me that I need to worry for. Sometimes I wouldn't even pay myself in order to be able to make the end of month salaries payment. And so, how do you survive all of this if you don't have an internal purpose-driven energy that sustains you throughout all those bad things? If you only think of, I'm gonna make it big and I'm gonna make 100 million, $1 billion, for me, it's a shallow motivator and that doesn't sustain you for very long. Because you're gonna start losing belief in your ability to be able to get to that particular goal after your first, second, third failed attempt, right? And so if you don't have something that's more ingrained and kind of heavier than, as you said earlier, women or money, it would be a hard road to take. And this is from someone, again, that never wanted to build a business. I really, it was never my interest or my intention. It was just the only vehicle that I could get in order to do what I wanted to do and explore what I wanted to explore. Because I knew that I couldn't, being a neurodivergent, I would have a very hard time working in an office space and doing the same thing today and tomorrow. And I knew that also I couldn't take care of my whole family. My family from my dad's side is mainly blue-collar workers. And he felt that responsibility, and he's taking care of those that are sick and those that can't work, and on a teacher's salary. And I was like, I want to take care of them and take care of you so that you don't have to do it anymore in your retirement years. And all of these make for a much heavier motivator. And so that's what made me go into business. I was like, oh, this is the quickest way for me to get to buy 30 or something to get to the financial stability and security that I can provide for my family, and can safely say that I don't have to work and able to take care of them. Then for me to be able to go and chart my way while deciding 100% on what I want to do tomorrow based on what I feel today.
You mentioned throughout the conversation being neurodivergent, ADD, and this is something a lot of our listeners struggle to, even I struggled to with it for a bit as well. When was your first time you realized that you're a little bit different from your people that you grew up with?
Honestly, I noticed it pretty early on. I think I was in second grade when I knew that I was built different. Just because I could not connect with other students and other kids of my generation. So yes, I learned how to socially integrate myself on a limited basis by joining physical activities. So as you said, playing soccer, whatever you do in the neighborhood, right? But I noticed that people formed cliques and posses, and they were discussing things and going and doing things, and I've never had any interest in whatever they were discussing or whatever they were doing. And so other than the physical activities, I never felt that I had much in common with them. The first year skip that I did was third grade, so it was right after I started feeling the difference. And so I would get bored in class because I knew everything that was there. And so the teacher at that point noticed that I was becoming a kind of a truant in a sense, because I was getting bored, and conformism wasn't really, again, was something that I was built different in. And so his solution was, I don't want you in my class, so let me see if I can bump you. Because whenever he would question me on whatever was on the table, even after seeing me speaking or playing or whatever, I would answer him, and he would correct him a lot of the time on things that he was doing. And he was like, okay, let's try to get rid of you somehow. And so he got an inspector, like an engagement inspector, who had me pass the 6th grade exam, and I had an 80% or something on a 6th grade exam. That's how they decided to move me a couple of classes forward. And so again, I knew pretty much early on that I had a higher IQ than average, and that I had a few neurodivergence traits. Obviously, none of these words meant anything at the time, but it was just that I knew that I could learn things faster. I didn't need to go study at home for exams or anything, and that I could pick up on like observational connections a lot easier than most people do, and that I had zero social skills in the inherent sense. I had to develop them, basically faking what human interactions look like, just in order to blend in for the limited required time and space. But it is not what gives me energy, and it's basically an obligation.
Man, oh God, I feel seen. I feel seen. But do you think you did all of those despite having ADHD, or because you had ADHD, you were able to do all of those? Was it a hindrance for you, or was it something that actually pushed you forward?
The way I see it, and I have been a little more a bit more vocal about these subjects lately, because, as you said, that's another place where I feel that the impact of being seen is something that I wished I had when I was coming up, and when these things were happening. Is It's not a hindrance. It's not a superpower. It's just me. The same way that a neurotypical is built as a neurotypical, I'm built this way. And so it's like being born with a tool belt. And my tool belt is different than your tool belt. But I still need to build a door and build a chair, and I have to figure out how to use my tool belt, which is different from yours, to build the same thing, right? And so, because if I put it in a box, then I'm trying to put myself in a box. And that's the whole point of understanding and accepting and acknowledging neurodivergence, is that you shouldn't try to put people in a box. They should define what the world looks like to them from their own experience. Doesn't even, it's interesting and important for other people to understand you throughout the lenses of the different definitions that we put on the spectrum of neurodivergence, just to approximate it to other people so that they would understand. But from your own point of view, and from the point of view of other neurodivergence that intuitively and inherently understand what you're going through, not because they're going through it exactly the same way, but because they're going through it differently from 80 or 90% of the other people that are around them. What I prone to our people is, do not try to define your experience based on the boxes that are available to you, either from a neurodivergent perspective or from a neurotypical. Just consider yourself as, again, owning this different tool belt that you need to figure out how to make it work for you to get to what you want to do, which also needs to be different from what you see everybody else trying to strive for or having a purpose as. And the way you can do this is basically to hone in to observation and introspection. Observation is whenever you're interacting with your peers, neurotypicals or neurodivergents, thinking, what does trigger me about this interaction? Why am I irritated from this interaction? Why am I happy from this exchange? Or why am I happy being in this place other than that place? Trying to think about what are the tools that are in my belt, because the problem is we can't see it unless we actually try to, and so it's really important to understand that without introspection and without observation for our own triggers, for our own boosters, and from our own energy dampeners and drainers, we cannot learn how to function in the optimal way that enables us to be us with no definition or boxing. And that's what I believe is missing in the education for emotional intelligence and for the aspects of neurodivergence, is just teaching people to learn to know who they are first and trying to understand how they function. Did you ever hear this concept of try to learn how you function first, not by reading it in a book, but just trying to observe, okay, what do I not like about this interaction, this exchange, this activity? And then building a dictionary of you. What is my happy place? What is my sad place? What is my irritative place? And how do these all get defined? And how do I find work, find activities that are fulfilling, find activities that are fun, that match my dictionary, not somebody else's? Is this, because I've never had somebody tell me this conversation. I had to go just try to learn it by myself and try to create this whole framework for myself. And it took a long time. And so that's why I've been vocal more about it the past few years, is because now I can vocalize it. Now I understand and I can guide people through that framework of, okay, you need to learn how you function and the different tools that you have.
I heard a quote somewhere that having a rich vocabulary is equal having a rich life, and I agree with you. I wish that this kind of things have been taught in schools. Math and science are extremely important, but so as knowing what makes you mad and makes you upset, because I know a lot of smart people they cannot articulate how they feel or why they make decisions the way that they make decisions. But I want to ask a different question. Because you're in my very small group, all of us, most of us are not married yet. We want to, until we become successful, until we finish whatever we're building, then we're gonna get married. You chose to go the other way around. You married early, and this is quite weird for Dubai in particular. And how big is the role of your wife played in your successes?
It's an understanding of a responsibility, partnership, and the fact that you don't get to do everything you want at any point in time, because you need to be understanding and respectful of the other person that shares your life. This gives you a lot of perspective and supports your understanding of how you function. Because again, everybody comes with a baggage to a relationship or to a partnership. And so cementing that relationship into a marriage means that, well, compared to having a girlfriend where you can break up tomorrow, this becomes much more kind of reinforced the concept of we need to work out the baggage that we bring into the relationship, right? And so that makes you more empathic, makes you more adapting in social situations, just because, again, you are in a constant social situation at your home. And it also gives you a much bigger sense of external responsibility, as opposed to when you're by yourself and you can make whatever decisions you want, and it only impacts yourself to the biggest degree.
Khalid, thank you so much for making the time. We will definitely gotta do this again. I had hundreds of questions that I haven't even asked yet. But where our audience can find you, how can we be helpful for you? I mean, you don't have a books, you don't have any course that you are teaching. How can be helpful for you?
The how I see it is, how can I be helpful to your audience? So where you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on my website, and I am very responsive on my LinkedIn. But how can I support your audience? If you are an entrepreneur or a leader that would like some their journey, either from a technology perspective or from a strategy or from a leadership perspective. Right now, again, after my retirement, I am focused more on supporting entrepreneurs have better governance throughout supporting them on their boards, or supporting their product journeys by helping them as fractional CPO or CTO, and supporting them through coaching as well. I have a few entrepreneurs that I mentor and coach the same way that we've had this conversation on not only navigating their business, but also navigating their personal development along the way. And so, where people can reach me, they can reach me on LinkedIn. They can reach me on my website. And how I can support your audience. If you're an entrepreneur or a leader in your organization, how I can support you is by a few ways. I can support you within your governance and strategy efforts as a board member within your organization. I can support you or your organization and your team throughout speaking and training or around technology, leadership, and operational excellency. And I can support you as a mentor and a coach throughout both building your and scaling your business, as well as the personal development aspects that come through the braving the difficulties and the challenges of building a business. So you're welcome to any and all of those aspects, and I'm happy to support you guys in any way.
Khalid, great to have you, man. Hopefully we gotta do that again.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.